Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever it might be for you. My name is Cornell Johnston, and I'm going to make a few YouTube videos, and I hope you'll follow me on YouTube. And if you do, I'm quite sure you'll learn something. I'm addressing my videos primarily to two groups of people, and that's poor white folks and poor black folks. And why I think poor white folks and poor black folks for one time in America should be able to agree upon something and come together and do something positive that's going to help American citizens of modest means. And that's the key word, American citizens of modest means. Now, there are several different things I can digress upon, but I'm going to start where most people usually end up, and that is probably the most dynamic subject, and that is illegal immigration, the opioid epidemic, and why they are inseparable. And of course, we got a new guy in the White House, Donald John Trump, and he's pushing an aggressive deportation policy directed at people who are in the country illegally. And I think that, first of all, I know that everyone, if you are of modest means, if you have a loved one or a relative who has experienced an opioid problem, that you need somebody in the White House who is going to unequivocally enforce existing immigration law. Nobody has the right, I don't care whether they're a sheriff, a police officer, or a president, to pick and choose what laws that they want to enforce. If you don't like a law, then you go before the Supreme Court and you challenge the law. And there are two ways that a law can be declared unconstitutional. And one is that it is unconstitutional on its face. What it is asking authorities to do is against what is in the Constitution. Number two, that it allows for discriminatory or arbitrary enforcement, and to select when and how you're going to enforce a certain law, that's discriminatory and arbitrary. And this illegal immigration, we can't fool around with it, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you got people dying, and it's the government's job to protect us, regardless of the color of our skin. Just the fact that we're citizens, our safety, our protection, our security, economic and physical, should be the first priority of our government. And anytime that you have 200 people per day dying because of something, then you need to protect those people, those citizens, those legal citizens of the United States from whatever is killing them. And opioids and dangerous drugs coming across the southern border is killing Americans in large numbers. There was a couple of weeks ago that, what was it, Syria, they bombed over 80-some children being killed in a chemical attack. President Bush spent several $trillion fighting wars overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan, so on and so forth. It cost of 7,000 or 8,000 American lives in search of weapons of mass destruction. Well, believe it or not, the opium that's coming into this country, the methadone, the fentanyl, and the cocaine are the equivalent of chemical warfare, and they are being used as a weapon of mass destruction. And the tolerance of allowing people to come into this country illegally, unchallenged, is facilitating those deaths from those substances. Take this into consideration, that last year, 2016, there were at least, and this is a conservative estimate, because the figures vary, they're all over the place, but a conservative estimate would be about 35,000 deaths as a result, direct result of heroin, cocaine, and meth. Well, that was double the amount of deaths just 4 years ago. And if things continue on their current trend, it will double again by 2020. And we'll be up to 70,000 deaths annually from these substances coming across the southern border. And the reason why I say illegal immigration walks hand in hand with this, because I've sold drugs. You know, I came up on the rough side of the tracks, and eventually, when I was going to high school, I got a chance to go to college, and I got educated, and I got a degree. One of the degrees I have is criminal justice, another one is in criminal justice administration, another one in political science. But before that, I lived in a drug-infested community, and I seen what drugs do to people. And that is a part of America which was known then and now as the inner city. And if you look at the inner city today, you'll see that the inner city is a shell of what it used to be. It's been completely devastated from 40 years of illegal drugs being dumped on black communities. And you don't need a calculator, you don't even need much common sense to look around you and see what has happened to the inner city if you know what to look for. You'll notice if you go to any inner city neighborhood in the U.S. that 70% of the people are just gone. And you can tell that because of the number of vacant lots and abandoned houses there are. And only people that are left in the so-called ghetto or inner city are people that are just too poor to get away. So where do those 70% of people go? They went to the communities in the small towns that surround the inner city. The inner cities are just what they are named to be. They are close to the central urban area. But the further away you get from the central city, then the demographics change from predominantly black to predominantly white. Now today, I live in the state, part of the state where it's more affluent than in the inner city. It's one of the most affluent counties in western Pennsylvania. And 3/4 of the residents there are white. But the same thing that was going on in the inner city in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s is now going on in these small towns and rural areas, even affluent white communities. That opioid abuse, drug deaths is through the roof. Poverty is greatly expanded. It's everywhere. I see poor white people coming and going. I see them with food stamps. I see the little girls with unwed mothers with 2 or 3 babies, and so on and so forth. So white America, a large segment of white America, has become poor and victimized by drug trafficking. And so how does drug trafficking take place? How is it facilitated by the tolerance of illegal immigration? If you know anything about drug trafficking, if you've ever seen it up close and personal, like I have, you'll be able to tell right off the bat that this is organized crime. And it is highly organized, and everybody has a role to play, and whole communities are involved in profiting from the sale of drugs that come across that southern border. And these are communities inhabited primarily by illegal aliens or people from Central America. And if you want to get rich selling drugs, I probably shouldn't share this information because it's pretty much a blueprint to getting rich from selling narcotics or meth or coke or something like that. All you got to do is find one of these communities, probably a sanctuary city, and find one person selling small amounts of drugs, and you tell them you have a large amount of money to spend, and they will hook you up with somebody who can hook you up with that large amount of drugs that you can purchase from. And when you meet the person selling a large amount of drugs, you know this isn't just some poor guy that wandered across the border or snuck across the border to work and do jobs that nobody else wanted to do and seek a better life for his family. You know that this is a person that came here for the specific reason of trafficking in narcotics. And they had that thing so well organized and systematized around people from Central America and Central American communities that they're doing the same thing that Al Qaeda and Hezbollah and the terrorists over in the Middle East are doing in those West Asian countries, is they hide amongst the people, and the people protect them and they lie for them and so on and so forth. And the only way that that's going to get broken up is if we get a government that adopts a no tolerance policy toward illegal immigration. And it's not going to be a surgical war, because it is a war. Not going to be able to say, well, we're only going to deport people that are in the country because they have committed a crime. No. When they stepped across that border, they committed a crime. And they made a decision. They made a decision to take from someone else what they themselves held most precious of all. The very reason they claim they came here, a chance for a better life. Someone that obeyed the law, played by the rules, waited their turn in line. So they made a decision. They made a decision to break the law. They made a decision to come into a country without authorization, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They committed a crime complete with a victim. And the victims are people of modest means in the United States who need those jobs worse than ever. There's some big lies surrounding illegal immigration. I've been listening to, especially the Democrats, tell them for years. And that's another thing. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to dwell on that point for a minute, that if you're black in this country, or if you're white, but especially if you're black, you should not be a Democrat or a Republican or tied to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. You should be an independent and make your decisions on that basis. Listen carefully to what is being offered to you and what has been told to you, and decide what is best for you and best for people who are like you or in the same situation as you. Now, being that I'm an American of African descent, I have to make my decisions with that in mind, that my people have been missiled, flim-flam, bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray, taken advantage of in every way. And most of this has been facilitated by leaders that lead us, people that we didn't even pick. They were chosen for us by someone else. And since they have a platform to speak to us, we listen to him, because we don't have access to other people who might say, no, they're telling you wrong. Don't do this, and explain to us, this is not in your best interest. And with the illegal immigration thing, now, we trusted President Obama. We were elated. People cried in the streets when this man was elected. But President Obama, with all due respect, he was a Democrat first, and a poor American second, and an African American third. And that's who he served. He served the interests of the Democratic Party. Get another Democrat into the presidency, regardless of how it affected Black Americans. And with this immigration thing, this is so important because it is so potentially damaging to the prospects of Americans of modest means, black and white, that if we would have elected Hillary Clinton president of this country, we'd have been through. We'd have been through. What's happening from South America is, like I said, just not a few innocent people creeping across the border in search of a better life. This is an invasion. These are criminal, illegal invaders who force their way into a country and are demanding the privileges and the rights of citizens and being aggressive about it and refusing to leave. And if the Democrats would have won this election because those people were voting democratically, they would have let enough of them, because it's all about the numbers. They would have let enough of them into this country. You see what a hard time we're having getting just a few of them to leave and do the right thing now. Can you imagine if 25 million more of them would have came in there? They would have taken over. And the first people that would have suffered and suffers grievously would have been black people. I can figure that out. Obama and the Clintons, they're lawyers. And almost all lawyers were one time or another political science majors who took a lot of classes in political science. And most political science departments are connected to the history department. Because to understand politics, you must first understand history. Because then you know who did what and why and what effect it had. That way you can protect yourself from making the same mistakes again. They say history repeats itself. It repeats itself because people who don't understand history will make the same mistakes again because they are guided mostly by human nature. All right. So if I can figure this out, I know that President Obama had been able to figure this out. And I definitely know that the Clintons know exactly what they were doing. And if they got here in large numbers, black people would have been through, and poor white folks down there at the bottom. Believe it or not, color doesn't determine everything in America anymore. It's economics, where you are situated economically. And that has been the trick that America has played on poor people, black and white, for over 400 years. They managed to convince poor white people that if you want to be rich one day, all you have to do is go along with us in holding down black folks. Because they got your money, or they got your job, or they're sucking up all the welfare benefits and keeping your taxes high. Any ridiculous lie. And no politician has ever been able to resist the temptation of going to that poison well and taking a drink with those race-based politics. Well, if couldn't agree on anything else before this, black folks and white folks agree on this, that this time it ain't black people. You see, that's another thing about program thinking, rather than using your common sense, looking at the data, examining the history, and coming to an intelligent decision. Think about it now. If you're black, really think about this one. You got Donald Trump, you got Hillary Clinton. What did Hillary Clinton say about black people? Called us super predators. What did Bill Clinton say about Barack Obama on the golf course? Laughed and said a few years ago, this guy would have been carrying our bags. What did he say in South Carolina? Compared his candidacy to Jesse Jackson's candidacy and said it was a fantasy. A fantasy, everybody knew, a fantasy because he was black. And no black man was going to be president in America. This is ridiculous. Vote for my wife. He has never been able to resist saying those little racist things and going to that well to drink. That well that says white people, black people are your problem. Well, for once, we ain't it. Trump did not say any of that. They tried to make the things he said insulting, and he might have not been artful in his language or selection of words when he said things like, you have no jobs, your schools are bad, and so on and so forth, you're poor, and this, that, and the other. And then the bourgeoisie, black people say, oh no, you shouldn't say that, and that's demeaning. No, it's not demeaning, it's true. But he didn't say anything, I guess, criminalizing or indicting black people in any way. What did he do? He went straight to that illegal immigration issue, and that is the number one issue that has to be dealt with in the United States if any of us people of modest means are going to have a decent chance to advance ourselves. That's the number one issue. And those drugs that are coming in here, the true cost of illegal immigration, first of all, they send $25 to $28 billion a year back to Mexico. That is the number two source of revenue going into Mexico, is money that is sent back to, well, not just Mexico, all of Central America from the United States. Okay. If that amount of money is going back and can be traced, how much money you think is going back across that border that you can't trace? Remember I told you I came up on the rough side of the tracks, and I used to sell drugs. I used to sell drugs. I used to do interstate transportation of narcotics and distribute them before I knew better. I mean, I'm an old man now. I'm damn near 70 years old. So we're talking about way back. Anybody think coming and arresting me, the statute of limitation is ran out on everything I ever done. You know, so I can speak freely. Okay, I'm not running for anybody's public office. I'm not even trying to make a buck. I just see this is a public service by me sharing this, with people. Okay, now I've sat with people from Central America who were involved in interstate transportation of narcotics, and they hand carry billions of dollars back across that border every year, much more money than is recorded. So if you're talking about 25, 28 billion going back across that border up front and on top of the table and out open, how many billion you think go across that border under the table and unrecorded? And that's all money coming out of the U.S. economy. And it doesn't end there. This is a health care crisis. They're fighting in Washington, D.C. now over nickels and dimes in this health care bill. And they're getting ready to make poor folks, 23 to 25 million of them, the last go around was due to lose their insurance because they couldn't afford to pay for it because health care is so high. Well, we're spending billions of dollars on health care from diseases that are a direct result of intravenous drug use. Nothing transmits intravenous, nothing transmits these deadly diseases like AIDS, hepatitis C, like intravenous drug use. I know there are supposed to be 3.5 million Americans that have hepatitis C now. Well, the way we're going now, if we're having 200 and something deaths, if we're having over 200 deaths a day from opioid overdoses, can you imagine how many people are getting infected from using dirty needles. That's the rule of thumb. That's not the exception to the rule. People that use intravenous drugs, they share needles. And hepatitis C, AIDS, they're very expensive diseases to treat. Hepatitis C, they just recently, Bristol Myers came up with a cure for it. It's a drug called Heroine. 1 pill a day. That 1 pill costs $800 to $1,000. Now on the commercials, they'll say it can be cured in some people as little as 12 weeks. But in most people, you're talking about an average of 3 to 4 months of taking that pill at $800 to $1,000 a day. So you're talking about over $100,000 just for the medication alone. Then you have the office visits, the tests, the follow-up. So how much are you talking about per person? You're talking about easily $150,000 a person. And then you're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people being affected. Because you got 3.5 million, mostly baby boomers affected with hepatitis C, but it's growing and expanding exponentially among young people. Because those are the ones that are dying of overdoses, those are the ones shooting the dope. And then AIDS, everyone knows that's expensive to treat. Then they got things that most people never heard about that are being transmitted through intravenous drug use. I'll tell you another one. These are heart valve infections. People use contaminated needles, and that blood, contaminated blood, gets into the vessels of the heart. They have to have heart vessels taken out, removed, and replaced. That surgery right there is over $100,000 per patient. And with all the doctor's visits and the medication and the follow-up treatment, people get that surgery done who haven't successfully addressed their substance abuse problem. Then the next thing you know, and doctors are complaining about this all over. And it's not the inner city. This is small town, rural America, and upscale America. This is where most of these people are. They're going back to the hospital 2 or 3 times to have this surgery done. But the people who are having the surgery done, most of them, they don't have insurance. So that burden of paying for that treatment falls again on the public. And then you have the welfare system being overburdened because you say, we'll come here to do jobs that no one else will do. That's a lie in and of itself. But a lot of them come here, and America, we are filled up, running over. We don't need any more unskilled or semi-skilled workers. And a lot of them folks end up on welfare, collecting benefits. Then you have to educate their children. We're running in excess of $250 billion welfare program, not for America, but for Central America. There's no wonder that the government has no money left over to take care of American citizens. This is wrong. This is a travesty of justice being committed upon American citizens by the power structure in America. And the only person standing up tall for this is, and I'm not a Trump fan. I'm a fan of the truth, though. Is Donald Trump. So we should at least, black people and white people, if we can't come together on nothing else, we should be able to come together on this one. Stop the invasion. The only way you stop the invasion is you remove the incentives for the invasion. Every incentive. And if somebody is sitting down in Guatemala or wherever having a conversation saying, well, things aren't going too well for me here, I think I'll go to America. And somebody said, yeah, going to America, so you'll probably be all right up there. They ain't going to bother you as long as they don't catch you sticking up no gas stations or trying to rape nobody or selling no dope. And there's somebody else that said, no, they just kicked me out of America, and things are rough in America. You can't get a job because they're e-verified. You can't get welfare checks because they're not doing that anymore, because Americans is hurting and they need that money. They don't have it to give away anymore, and they're not giving it away anymore. Landlords won't rent to you because they're demanding that they use e-verify. If you get caught up there, they said since Mexico wouldn't pay for the wall, they're gonna make Mexicans build it. And I just come back from there, and my cousin Jose or Manuel or whoever the hell say he's still stuck there, and he's gonna be there 2 years because this is his second time. That's what they do. You can come back 2 times. They give you 2 years. He's gonna be working on that wall for nothing for 2 years. And if they march across that desert and see Manuel on the wall, I know what I do. I would turn right around and going back to where I came from. You know, so if you can't get Mexico to pay for the wall, Mr. Trump, get the illegal aliens to build a wall. And for God's sake, leave black folk alone. And I know that the Trump administration, they know better. That's why I say about listening to what people say and go by that, and not by what political propaganda you hear. This fellow, President Trump, he might not be eloquent like Obama, and he might not be as organized in his presentation as Hillary Clinton. So you have to kind of really listen to what he's saying to get the full implication of what he means. And he said some things that kind of made me take a second look at him. And one of the things he said, like I said, Hillary Clinton, she went on and on with that super predator stuff. There's a great book out by a guy named Nathan Robinson called Super Predator. Read that book. Listen, look into it. Look into the Clintons. Look into President Obama, the East African Kenyan with the rich daddy who went to Panamumu or Lulu or whatever it is, university down there in Honolulu, $22,000 a semester, who was left $500,000 by his white grandmother and so on and so forth. Look at all that. But looking to Donald Trump, to examine him and what motivates him. In future videos, I'm going to go more into depth in Obama as opposed to Donald Trump and the Clintons and their background. I'm going to talk more about Trump and the alt-right and what motivates them and so on and so forth. But this one thing that he said that let me know that this is not a stupid man, and he knows something about history, and he's not after black people, and he's not out to really hurt black people at all. When he said that illegal immigration was the civil rights crime of our time being committed against people of African descent. And he also said that African Americans fought in every war that America has been in. We have sacrificed for over 20 generations to make America what it is. And we have died by the hundreds of thousands fighting for America. We never got rewarded for any of that. We waited 400 years for a black man to get into the White House. And people cried in the streets. You remember Jesse Jackson and all the folks cried in the street? And we didn't get anything for that. Obama did nothing for black people. Nothing at all. And there was a lot that he could have done for us. And I'm going to go through some of the things. There's probably 6 or 7 specific things that Barack Obama could have done that would help the situation of black people in this country. That he didn't have to go to Congress to get permission. He didn't have to get it voted on. He did it through executive order. He has a huge $500 billion budget that he's in control of. There's so much that he could have done, and he didn't do any of that. The reason why he didn't do any of that, because he didn't have us on his mind. He was a Democrat. He was a servant of the Democrat Party. He was the creation of Democrats. And the last thing that he did not do for us, and he did not do for poor white America, because they're hurting too. is he did not address this illegal immigration issue with the sincerity that he should have. And I'm gonna leave it right there. And I'll get back to you all very soon and talk about some things in greater detail. I know there's a lot that I have to say, and a lot of things that I can point out and explain. And but I didn't take any notes. I didn't write anything down. I've been reading and studying for many years. I've been watching politics, just like everyone else, quite avidly over the last 8 or 10 years. Because one thing Barack Obama did do, and he made black folk pay attention. You know, we paid attention. We're kind of like a kid on Christmas Eve. You know, Christmas Eve when you're a kid and you go to bed and you're hoping and you believe that tomorrow morning, even if you're poor, that something's going to be up underneath that Christmas tree for you, and Christmas is going to be a great deal. That's the magic of Christmas. And we had the magic of Christmas in our heart when we seen a black man take the oath of office. And we thought, finally, that foot's going to come up off of our neck. And we don't want any welfare or charity or any handouts. We're not a charity case. We're just going to get our turn at the wheel. We're going to get to play on a level playing field. And none of that happened. But what did happen is we began to pay attention to what was going on. And that's why the second term, folk didn't turn out for him in the large numbers that they did the first term. And when Hillary Clinton ran, despite his backing, him saying, I'll be personally hurt and offended if you don't come out and vote for her like you would have came out and voted for me. Well, they didn't realize that if he'd have been up there eligible for a third time, he would have lost too, because people had been paying attention for a long time now. And he wouldn't have made it through for a third term. Because we know that there are some of us that know that they just have been operating in our best interest. And those folks that did come out and vote a second time, they just hadn't got the memo yet. But this is the reason why I'm making these videos, and there are other people that are on YouTube making videos, because we're trying to get the message out to everybody to vote intelligently, because that's the big thing. Another thing, this immigration allowing people to walk into your country and demand citizenship. You know, we've sacrificed and fought hard for our citizenship, and it's a valuable thing to us. And the most valuable part of it is our vote. We do have a say in how our country is run, and we can influence the level of opportunity that we all experience by exercising our vote intelligently. That's why they call it political capital. And I want to get the word out to black people and white folks of modest means that if we are ever going to have a shot at a better standard of living, that the first step is going to be to be informed and exercise our franchise wisely. So I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and thank you for listening.